Welcome, everybody, to your Monday Analytics show. I'm Terry Degani. This is Dan Williams. We're here to dissect all things Carlton and the Western Bulldogs. It was an exciting game on the weekend and really going to dive deeper into what happened and see if we can come up with some more solutions and whatnot. Dan, always good to have you on the show, mate. Welcome.
Good to be here. Cheers, buddy. Good result.
Tell me it.
Exciting.
Mate, I've only seen a Carlton side that plays an exciting brand of footy since I've been back. And obviously, Teague has come in, new ethos to the way we play the game. But it's great. It's great to see the boys play with confidence. It sometimes gets us into trouble. But
definitely, yeah.
I think you're willing to take that, given that when we do get on a run, and I think that's the beauty of 666. It's a momentum game. And once you have the momentum, that setup allows you to keep that momentum if you do the right things. So I enjoyed myself. I
thought it was a great evening. Shame about the result, but we were entertained.
Absolutely, mate. So tell me a little bit about your scene. Where were you during the game? You were at the game, I believe.
Yeah, we're a level 2. Me and the father-in-law this time.
Yep.
I think he nearly had 2 heart attacks, he said, during that game. He couldn't bear it. Funny story, though, 10 minutes to go, when we went that 30 down again, he was like, I think I need to go to the toilet and just leave. He couldn't do it. And when he came back, he was like, what's the score? And I said, we just kicked 3 on a row. We're 6 behind. And he couldn't believe it. So we were on the edge of our seat towards the end. It was such a good game. So good.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of got maybe 5 or 6 minutes into the fourth quarter, and I just sort of said, I think we were down 28, I think it was. And then they got down to 34, and it was more or less about, can we show something here? Can we cut it back to 25, 24 and, not have this blow out to 45, 50? And to be honest, I did not see the run coming. I really didn't.
It was exciting. We were saying on the drive home, it didn't feel like a loss because you were so proud of how they came back twice. Tough one to lose, though, from that position, but great game, great entertainment.
Great game of footy. I think that's one of the reasons why they brought in the 666 for games like that.
It had everything as well. It had controversial decisions, turnovers, lead changes. Everything you want in a game of football, that was it. That's a showcase of our wonderful game, that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, let's get stuck right into it.
Let's do it.
Obviously, we debuted the TPI last week, and we got some great feedback there. So well done on all your efforts there. So why don't you take us through what's happened here? There's just a little box on the top of the screen there you might want to remove. Yeah, there you go.
So here we are. So we've got Caleb Marchbank, Lockie Plowman and Levi Casbolt. So bit of a flip around for Lockie this week. He made a lot of meters against Brisbane, if we remember.
Yep.
This week, not as many meters, but I thought fairly solid game. I was really pleased to see his 100% disposal efficiency. I thought he used the ball well. I gave him a 6 out of 10. TPI was about 2.69, which shows he was average to fair in the back pocket. Could have been better, but could have been a lot worse, I thought, with Plowman.
Yeah, I didn't really notice him, to be honest with you. When I spoke about him in my review, it was just one of those games, and I don't need to notice Lockie Plowman, and that's okay if I don't notice him. I just didn't. It was just sort of neither here or there, but that's okay for Lockie Plowman as long as his direct opponent isn't dominating. So I don't really have too much to offer with him. It was an interesting one. It was probably similar with Marchbank too. I mean, we're looking over here. He's had the 5.8 in the TPI, which is quite a good score for a key position defender, right?
It's a very good score, and he got that mainly because he matched up a couple of times on Norton. When he was on Norton went scoreless. And he made a couple of tackles on Sam Lloyd in what was 50-50 goal scoring chances. So I thought he did really well, Caleb Marchbank. I gave him personally a 7.2 as well. I really enjoyed his game. I thought he was one of the standouts in that back line. Really maturing into that role now, I think. He's really maturing into that role.
Yep. And then the big fella.
Levi, I gave an 8. I thought he was phenomenal.
I spoke about it earlier. I was on a podcast with Mark, and Levi has somehow gone into this territory where when the ball goes near him, at the start of the season, I was a little bit mindful and I was a little bit worried, and I'm thinking, what's going to happen here? Whereas now, when the ball goes anywhere near him, especially if it's in the air, my first thought is, Levi, he's got this, no problem. He's
100%. He's so good.
He's and just looking at, going into the stats a little bit more, the pressure acts are up. He's got a good, even spread of contributions across the board in those statistics that we don't usually look at. Pressure acts.
I think the big one for me is he's becoming Dylan Grimes. He's taking the game on, 200 metres gained and 4 score involvements. So he was involved in a lot of that transition, which we haven't seen from Levi.
Yep.
Real solid effort. Like, he's becoming one out of a footballer. I'm a believer in Casbolt now.
Yeah, there was a moment. It was kind of our last roll of the dice with about 2 minutes to go. He took 2 of those goal line saving marks. On the second one, he kicks this ball. I think it was 60 or 65 meters. It was a hurler of a kick, and it was just. I think that moment there embodied the total improvement that has been Levi Casbolt. And it was a shame because I'm not sure who marked that ball, but he had Lockie O'Brien running on the wing, and I would have liked for that play to continue. But that kick from Levi, that goal-saving mark and that kick from Levi has put him into a position where all of a sudden, Liam Jones, once he's fit and firing, can you just bring him in for Levi, or does he have to go back and earn his spot through the twos?
Definitely not. I think it's been too long now. So for me, I think that's Casbolt's spot locked down, and he deserves to keep that spot. Phenomenal effort from Levi.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Really happy with Levi Casbolt. Let's move along.
So this was where I think the game came unstuck. Last week when I was doing my preview, I talked about the battle of the half-back lines. We didn't stop Johannesson in the first quarter. Good numbers on his metres gained. That was my criticism last week. He got a lot of the ball. Didn't do much with it, though, I didn't think. I gave him a 6.5. It was just a Cade Simpson game for me. That's what I expect of him.
I saw his game a little differently. Because obviously being there, he didn't have a lot of the ball. I mean, 22 possessions is a decent amount of the ball. I just saw he had a lot of those moments where he imposed himself physically and made a stoppage when there was a 2-on-1, or threw his body on the ball when it looked like the doggies were going to get out and about. There were certain moments there where I liked what he did. Certainly from a numbers standpoint, it wasn't a grand performance, but it's just he kind of reminded me on the weekend why we still need him and how important he is for us.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Like 6.5, 6.7. So that's a good mark. I thought that was just a Cade Simpson game. That's what I'd expect him week in, week out. I don't think it was anything that I'd write home about. I just thought it was a very solid game from him.
Yep.
Long may it continue in his twilight years. Jacob, on the other hand, I was a bit disappointed in Jacob. I think Norton bullied him a lot. But, I mean, we have these games. It was a tough matchup. I thought the Doggies, he really did suffer in that first quarter when the Doggies were on top. And I think they isolated him very well, Wheaterin. Yeah,
I agree with you there. It was a bit of a down game from Jacob, especially after his really good performance last week. There were a few moments. Now, I mean, you can argue that the hold on Norton shouldn't have been paid in the goal square, and you can argue that it should have been play on. But, the reality is Ray Chamberlain talks a lot about the game being so fast and you needing to make quick decisions. And it makes it easy for an umpire to call a holding when you see that jumper being pulled. And it was a bit unfortunate because, yes, Norton was holding him as well. But he had that moment, and then the moment directly after that where he just wasn't able to disguise the deliberate out of bounds. It just sort of summed up his nights, and
it just didn't happen.
Yeah, it just didn't happen for him. And the one thing about Jacob, which shows the improvement in him, is moving forward, I can have faith that he'll respond from this game. Whereas in the previous maybe 1 or 2 seasons, it was one of those performances where he probably gets down on himself and he struggles. So I look forward to a really good response from him.
100%. I mean, he got 3 in his TPI, which for a key position defender is a bit below where we'd expect. The centre half back and the full back would be expecting a 5 minimum. So TPI says he had a bad day. I gave him 5.7, which is bad game, but we move on. I'm sure he'll be back. Daisy, tough one, Daisy, because he was horrific the first couple of quarters, started to lose his rag, and then really came into it in the third and fourth quarter. I gave him a 6.7. He scored just a base 3. I gave him 0.2 more than Cade purely for the goal, because I thought the goal was outstanding. It was Daisy-esque.
It was Daisy-esque. It was Daisy in his prime. And I mean, if he kicks that second one directly after on the left, that place was about to explode.
Oh, it was a great moment. I mean, the celebration as well. I love that. The little windmill came back. Good days. Good days.
I mean,
Continue.
Can you imagine if he can sort of recapture that form going into the last part of the season and sort of get to his, 25, 26 possessions and kick his 2 goals?
I'd love to see him in that forward line a bit more, because he just makes things happen.
Yep.
I mean, tough game for Daisy. I think that's probably as good as we're going to get from Daisy for me.
Yep.
I can't see. We wait for them Herculean moments he produces, and that was one of them. Like good performance. I thought 6.7. So we go over to probably the area of contention. So I've done a little bit at the end of this video on Will Setterfield, so I'll go into him in a bit more detail then. But I thought really good game from Will. Disposal efficiency, it was 44 last week, 75 this week. He used it really well.
Yep. And I believe last week he had 6 score involvements and he's done 5 this time around.
Yeah, to be honest, everything's an improvement, or he stayed the same. But I said last week his disposal efficiency was killing him, 44%. If he can keep these numbers up, he's only going to get better. And I thought really good performance from Setterfield. Yeah,
I mean, I know we'll talk about it later, but I agree. I mean, I can understand the frustrating moments because they were just so crucial. The shot on goal that he hits the post. He had a little tumble in that first quarter where he ran into Marchbank and tried to kick it off the ground, and that ended up in a goal that Ed Curnow couldn't get his hand on. And then there was the other little moment where he went to tap it on and it went straight to a Doggies player. But overall, we're talking about a guy playing in his 11th game, coming off a knee reconstruction. And you and I had I think you made the comment yesterday to me that we're sort of looking at him like a third-year player. He's pretty much a brand new player.
Exactly. Same games as Zach Butters in his career. So just put that in perspective.
That's what we need to do. We need to put some of this into context, I think.
Exactly. I mean, I thought good game. And also that goal he missed, he's got a lot of criticism on the internet for it. But only 12% of goals have been kicked from that success rate from that position at the Marvel. So that's in its lifetime. Yeah, he had been there. 12% of people have kicked goals from there. So to hit the post is remarkable, really. Yep.
Unfortunately, it wasn't Cripps' best game. I mean, the pressure acts look phenomenal, which we expect that from him. And he's the type of guy that he's able to find a way to impact the game no matter what. And it just wasn't his day in the first half. TPI is much lower than what it was last week, but
it's a comeback to earth for Patrick Cripps. He got a 6 from me personally. TPI gave him a 3. He did really well, though, at getting his hands to not allow clean ball. I think he did really well at evolving his game to not being able to impact it on the scoreboard, but just to stifle them. And they were getting clean ball in the first and second quarters. And Cripps stopped that in the third purely by getting his hands in all the time. So not the greatest, not the worst, but a fair effort from Patrick. 6 out of 10 I gave him, but not his best.
Yeah, no, we know he'll respond. And brings us to Sammy Walsh. Those pressure acts, that just goes to show the work ethic that the kid's got, doesn't it?
Becoming a total footballer, this kid. We're talking about Setterfield. Please remember he's not a third-year player. But I also have to say the same about Sam Walsh. Remember, he is a first-year player because these numbers are off the charts.
Yeah.
Like 18 years old and he's throwing his body into pressure acts 26 times. Like nearly beating Cripper is a fair effort.
That is a fair effort, yep. And the buy's come at a really good time for him. We know he's defying the logic or the physical logic that would be, a footy season to this point. And so I think, he gets his extra week off now, and I don't see why he couldn't play every single game.
He had a tough game. He played against Lockie Hunter. That was his direct matchup. And yep. I thought they were about 50-50 in the end. Lockie Hunter's a very smart footballer. I thought Sam Walsh showed his footy smarts. He turned him inside out twice on the wing in front of us, and I had to stand up and applaud it because Lockie Hunter isn't an idiot. He knows what he's doing. So absolutely. I thought good effort. I gave him 6.5. I thought that was solid.
Brilliant.
So,
wow.
So Michael Gibbons.
It was neither here or there. I was talking about it in the review, and obviously having gone and watched Jack Silvani in the VFL and seeing what he did. If Gibbons is going to play in this forward role and produce this kind of game, that's where I start thinking, well, maybe Jack can be in the side.
Oh, 100%. I didn't like the fact he didn't get much midfield time.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, 6 of his possessions were when he rotated with Murphy in the midfield. And he just looks lost on that in that forward role.
Yep.
He needs his hands on the pill to do something with it.
Yep.
Like the pressure acts were okay, but they weren't marvellous. He's a frustrating figure because we know he can do it, and I just think at the moment Carlton are using him wrong.
Yep.
And I gave him a 6 out of 10. TPI gave him just short of 1, which ain't the best. He did struggle, I thought. I enjoyed, though, the fact he was always attempting. He was chasing every man down, so I gave him a bit more than TPI would give him because I thought he really did try and influence it, but I don't like him in the forward line. I think he's either a midfielder for me or he's not playing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Mate, can you just remind me, what was Cripps' score last week?
It was 38 something.
Oh, okay. Because I just saw, obviously, Charlie's come up here, 25.87, and I quickly forgot what Cripps got last week. But
well, Charlie,
where do you start? That's his best game. I spoke about it earlier. He had the 5-goal game last year against the Tigers in round 1. 3 of those were from 50-metre penalties, which brought him into scoring range. And not taking anything away from him, but I just felt like every goal that he kicked was just a real, hard-earned goal. And, he had the spring in his step last week, and we spoke about it, and he really just followed through with it this week. And I think it's more than anything, it's a sigh of relief because there was a bit of a cloud over his health, and, was he fit, and the question marks were coming, and he's just knocked him out of the park.
Oh, for me, it was a mic drop moment. We can stop talking now. Is Charlie Curnow good? Like, there was them questions being asked as he lost it. Was last year a flash in the pan? What a total performance. 400 metres gained.
That's insane.
Nearly 20 touches for a key position forward. Just wow. Like, this guy is a freak of nature, and he was everywhere. Like, I was watching him live at the event. Just couldn't believe how much he runs as well. Like, phenomenal effort from Charlie. Total footballer. In my opinion, he's better than Buddy was at this age.
We might have to do an episode later on where we can compare him at the same time. Do you have those stats handy?
Yeah, they'll be somewhere deep in the system. But for me, me personally, I think he's better than Buddy. It'd be interesting to do that episode to see if I'm right. But I just feel he does so much in and around the ground as well, not just kick goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that comment, for those watching at the moment, this will premiere live. If there are any specific stats or comparisons or anything like that you want to have a look at, Dan has access to it. So just leave a comment and we'll get to it. We'll get to it in the coming
100%.
weeks. Just start thinking about what you want to see and we'll see what we can do.
100%.
Dan, talk to me about Ed Curnow.
Horrific in the first quarter. Why it took us a quarter and a half of football to put Curnow in the middle. He proves to me every time he plays in the forward line he's lost. See Michael Gibbons for Ed Curnow, I think. It's just, to me, when he went on Bontempelli did not look good. And I had to put my foot in my mouth last week and say Bontempelli's overrated. I still believe that, because when Ed went to him, Bontempelli was useless. So why he didn't happen at ball up, I don't know. But good numbers, though, for 2 quarters of football in the midfield, I think. 12 touches, 92% disposal efficiency. Good, solid game. He stopped someone else playing, and I gave him just short of 7 out of 10.
Yep. Moving along.
So I thought, okay, game from Ed. Just please put him in midfield. Mitch McGovern. Where do we start with him? Not great numbers, as we can see. He put a bit of pressure on in the forward line, as we can see. But look at his TPI, negative 2.59.
Yeah, he's was nowhere near it, mate. He was nowhere near it in this game. Everything he jumped at was mistimed, I felt. And, I mean, the one thing that is a positive about him is that he's a dead-eye dick. Kicks straight, kicks goals when he needs to, but it was not enough. My father-in-law said that was the worst leading to a football he's ever seen since my wife went and kicked footballs with him when she was a girl. So a damning reference from the old man, I think, there. Wow. Yeah. What do you do with him? For me, I've got a little slide at the end of what I think we should do with him, but for me, he needs to go to the VFL and just have a bit of easy football, because he looks out of touch. I don't think he's fit. He looked like he was huffing and puffing from the end of the first quarter. And as the stats show, he didn't run very far. So it's a tough one, but this would be one of his disappointing. I'm not sure what the stats say for the rest of the season, the season that's passed, but this would be one of his worst games in terms of the TPI. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he does very well, because when he gets a scoring shot, he invariably kicks it. But my issue is this goal was from a cheap free kick, which you could argue he shouldn't have got. And last week he stole a mark off Curnow in front of goal to get one. So he might be 100% from his goal kicking in the last 2 games, but did he deserve the goals? It's a tough one. It's interesting. I'm just looking here at moving ahead to Harry. Oh, gee, I thought the 2 of them, and again, David Teague talks a lot about our forwards being selfless and, allowing, for example, Charlie to dominate like he did. But Harry's got problems with his leading patterns, and I'm noticing it now that I'm here. I'm noticing he's just out of position a little bit. Now, again, we're not players, and I'm sure that he's got a much better understanding of where to lead than what we would. But the reality is, what I'm just seeing him not in the right positions enough. I think Charlie and Harry get away with their exceptionally good athleticism. So watch them. You notice they kind of lead sometimes too late, where McGovern leads too early. If you watch Harry and Charlie particularly carefully, the forward seems to get there a couple of paces before they react. And they're kind of a reactive forwards, but they get away with it because they're so athletic. Like, Harry takes some marks that he shouldn't really dream of. And I thought it was an okay game from Harry's. My concern is this is the second meh game Harry's had.
And he's a very confidence forward. He's one of these players that when he's in the game early, he's going to kick you 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And I don't think we targeted him as much. I think Charlie was our main point of attack this year and this week. And I think Harry suffered from that. There is a stat coming up that will show why I think Harry didn't see as much. But I gave him 5.8. TPI really enjoyed his pressure and his competition. So he did really compete well. And that's all you can ask. If he's not kicking goals, bring it to ground.
Righto. Samo, I felt, this game kind of reflects how I felt he played. I didn't realise he had that many pressure acts. Started with the long sleeves, decided to take them off as the game went on, which was interesting. But, I thought he got better as the game went on. And, we talk about with Samo, how can we get Samo from going from patches to 4 quarters of brilliance? And that's the challenge for him that he's going to go through. But 100%. I think overall, this is okay. This is okay what happened with him.
I just thought this week particular, last week I did say that I was really impressed with his tenacity. This week I was again impressed with it. I thought he did try and compete. He didn't see as much of it I think he should have done. But I was impressed with his in and under work. He really did compete well. Good TPI score. I gave him 6.8. I thought he did well. He did really well, Samo.
Yep.
A good base to move on from, I think, for Sam.
Yep, absolutely.
If that's his worst game, we're in for a treat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Matty Cruiser.
Mate,
I'll say it every week.
Before you go on, I was talking up this matchup with Tim English. I think we both did early in the week too.
Yeah,
I was just so confident that he'd get the better of English because he's a bit of a grunt, and English has struggled with those types in the year, Mumford, Grundy and the like. But unfortunately, he got caught out early in the game. Tim English took a nice mark, went back, kicked a goal, and then late in the game to put them up by, I think it was 28, kicked that goal after that beautiful mark. And, it was the athleticism of English that got the win in the end. Even though Cruiser did have a lot of the hit-outs and, did compete as he always does, I think English probably just got the better of him.
He did well. I mean, to me, we have this argument every week in the Carlton forums about experience. And Matty Cruiser's an experienced professional, and I felt he went into this contest trying to beat Tim English at his own game.
Yeah.
As opposed to using his experience and seeing what all the other ruckmen have done against him and just bullied him and used his body on him. And he didn't do that till too late. And by that stage, English had kicked a goal, had a behind, and was up and about. And he worked his way back in. Well, I gave him 6.5 and a very low average TPI for a ruckman. I'd expect to see ruckman getting in the 6 and 7s.
Yeah.
But he was a solid game. It was a Cruiser game again.
Yep.
It didn't.
Lockie O'Brien's got an interesting situation here because I thought he played not too dissimilar to the week before. He provided that run and carry, particularly in that third quarter when we really changed it up and really decided to really take the game on. He provided that overlap running.
Most meters gained on the field.
What's that?
Most meters gained on the pitch.
Interesting. Well, and his TPI doesn't really reflect that quite as much. Do you have any reason why that was the case?
Disposal efficiency. He missed targets a fair amount of times. He turned it over twice. That led to goals at the other end as well, which affects him. But for me, it was a solid out, exactly like you. I thought it was good. And to me, if that's Lockie's average game, he keeps his spot because his delivery of the ball is excellent.
Zach Fisher, I thought he was a little down, to be honest with you. I thought it was, we talk about him and Samo needing to really elevate their games together. And I thought he probably got into the contest a little too late. As the game was on the line, he sort of came into it a little bit more. Just wasn't able to impact the way that we would have liked to have seen.
100%. 2.8 TPI. I gave him 6.5. Really good pressure acts, just one short of Cripper. So he, as you say, he competed well and he got in the competition towards the end into the second half. He really did scrap, and we saw him get the ball and try and toss it out of contests and really scrapped hard. So wasn't the best game, but we saw a new side to him. I think that rough and ready side of Zach Fisher, and that was good to see. because
All right.
we haven't seen it. So now, finally, we've got the interchange. So David Cunningham, I thought a decent game for Cunners. Showed enough for me.
Fourth quarter. Had a really good fourth quarter, and he probably was having a bit of a so-and-so game, and he probably does what maybe you could say Setterfield doesn't in terms of, or Lockie O'Brien in terms of taking his moments. Cunners has this finishing ability that is not to be questioned.
He has game-breaking ability, no doubt about it. And I think that last quarter reminded me of Dustin Martin 2017, where you get a forward winger say, "Come on, give the ball to me, I'll end this game." And he just needed a bit more of it. I felt if the game went on for a minute more, I reckon this man would have kicked the winner. I thought really good game from Cunners. But like everyone else, he didn't put it together for 4 quarters.
Yep. Paddy Dow, not the best of games. Had his moments, his pressure acts, that's excellent. That's actually a huge tick to see that next to his name. Just probably one of those situations where we want to see him have the ball a bit more, particularly as a midfielder. I think those 9-possession games are a bit of a hallmark of what we were seeing last year with when Paulson
100%.
was in the side and, Lockie O'Brien first year and Dow first year. So probably want to get him to a bare minimum standard of about 14, 15 touches at best, at least, and then we can go from there.
100%. I think him and Newman, they didn't impact the game massively, but I think both of them did their jobs in ways that they could contribute. I think both of them had decent pressure acts for their positions, and they made it hard for their opponent. They might have not turned the game open, but they really did make it hard for their opposite man.
Yep. Nick Newman, another one who I felt not dissimilar to Wiedering and Marchbank and whatnot. It was just sort of it was good without, or okay without being great, and
fair.
It was thereabouts. I mean, that's okay. Newman's not someone that we need or expect to be a star. It was just sort of played his role, did okay. Isn't it? Ultimately he's in a back line that conceded 103 points. So, how much credit I'm going to give him is really a little limited. But yeah, it was okay.
I'm with you on that. I just thought most of the back line just played an okay game, and that's reflective in the fact we didn't win. So, yeah, it was average game. I reckon he'll be better. He did what he could.
Absolutely. Just noticing Murph here. Love the TPI. He had the 21 possessions.
Oh, I must have... let's just double check. Yeah,
I'm the one that... Now, that's funny because I would know what Mark Murphy had because I'm a big fan, as you know. But I thought he was poor in the first half by his own standards. I think he'd admit that. But that's kind of what happens when you miss so much footy. The fact that he was able to will himself into the game. And the other thing as well, he started on ball, started the third quarter. He started in the middle. And I thought his third quarter really just set us up for that first surge back into the game.
I think we were both big fans of Murphy coming in. And I think he showed why. I think his experience and his quality ball really turned the game on its head twice in Carlton's favour. And I think Murphy was a big part of that.
Yep. We've got 5 minutes left for this before we get cut off. So can we
okay, we'll smash this. So here we are. If we look, Bolton versus Teague, so this is like for like. Mm-hmm. Now, I think a big thing that stands out to me is why our mean TPI, if you look at the bottom, what that's telling us is Bolton, on average, everyone played 12.9% better than their TPIs were predicted. And if you look at Teague, -16. So the first 2 quarters, in the first quarter, Carlton were 30% worse than what TPI should have been. So that just puts it into perspective for me of why we struggled. And I also think if you look at the heat map, we can see why McKay...
Stark difference right there, isn't it?
Well, you can see why McKay struggled. He wasn't getting that down the wing channel because we were focusing on the centre, hence why Curnow was primary target number 1 coming from that centre-half forward position. But I think some interesting stats there. Tackles and marks inside 50, all about the same, bearing in mind we only played 2 quarters of football, where if you remember, we were on top for 4 whole quarters.
So this is just basically the two Western Bulldogs games.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
So bearing in mind, we only really were on top for 2 quarters, and Bolton had 4 quarters of dominance.
Yep.
I think it's quite a telling statistic that how we've changed as a team.
Certainly.
Okay, I mean, so anyone got any questions, just ask me. So this one's Setterfield and Butters. So one more game for Butters. And if we look at the comparison, interesting Kane Corn said about Butters this week, when he puts a bit of body on, he's going to be a very good combative inside midfielder. Both of them have similar backgrounds, pressure forwards converted to inside midfielders. And if we look, not too dissimilar in stats. So you can see 9 games for Setterfield, 11 games for Butters.
Very interesting. There, I mean, just sort of having watched a little bit of Port Adelaide, Setterfield's probably getting a bit more of a run in the midfield as what Butters is. The one thing about Setters that I like, I can see him being a student of the game. I can see him when he gets the ball, his first instinct is to sort of think how to create space for himself, then go. A little bit like Scott Pendlebury. Now, obviously, he doesn't have the polish that Scott Pendlebury does, but I think Setterfield's more going to be a thinker of a midfielder as opposed to just this bullocking guy.
100%. And I think that it just shows it there that I think how Setterfield 2 games behind, and he's doing very well. So just quickly on the next slide, this was Jack Silvani's game, so I'll let it play through. And here we are. So the TPI ran the game 10,000 times with a projected influence of what Jack Silvani did based on last week and converting him into his forward pocket role. So we gave him a 4.23, and we saw Will Setterfield had 3, Matt Murphy 9, and Mitch McGovern negative 2.59. And how it changed with if we put JSOS in for Murphy. So you can see we would have only won 22% of the time. For Setterfield, 27% of the time. And if he was replaced McGovern, we would have actually won with that team how they played 57% of the time, it's predicting.
Interesting. Mate, I'm going to cut you off there. Thank you very much for your time. And I think we've just got in time.
All right. Cheers, guys. See you next week.
Let us know what you thought about it in the comments below.
All right. Cheers, guys.